One of the first scenes of Detective Pikachu, the day was beginning, the sun was rising, and you saw Pidgeot flying through, Buffalo Ant roaming the plains, a Ruffiette in a barn, and Bulbasaur crossing the field. This is when I knew that something of mine from my childhood came to life. I was about to witness something very special, dear to my heart, and something that I never thought would come true, at least in my lifetime. A Pokemon movie. Hello everyone, welcome back. This is Rinks, and welcome to Talking Pokemon. This is a series where it's talking about all things Pokemon related, dealing with the main series games, animated movies, characters, and the individual Pokemon. We'll delve into different topics that we can just talk about from here on in, but for today's video, I want to talk about Detective Pikachu, the movie. This is one of my personal favorite movies of all time, and there's so much to gush over for this particular movie. There's so much I want to talk about, both positive and negatives. I do have a couple of things about the movie, but not so much that it ruins the movie for me. If anything, it's potential for the next movie that they could make. With so much to go into, let's dive right into it. Kicking off this video, in my tradition, I always like to start off with the negatives first and then talk about the positives, which I always favor positive over negative. But with Detective Pikachu, it was not very effective with certain things. In my opinion, there's certain things in the story that could have been better, but towards the end of this segment, I do want to touch up on an overall thing, but all of these are linked together. The first thing about the movie was that I felt like the story with Tim Goodman and Harry Goodman with their relationship could have been branched out a bit more, and I'm referring to their past, not necessarily their time together working as a team, but I'm talking about the past of what led to Tim not talking to his father. You could work out certain things, that why he chose not to talk to his father, that he blames himself. With certain things you do need to kind of bring up. In this particular situation, you need to bring up that Tim resented Pokemon in a way where he blames himself for his mother, or he felt guilty of choosing Pokemon over his mother. Because in the part where it was revealed that his mother passed away, you can't imagine how much guilt he felt that he wanted to go to a Pokemon tournament and then not care about his mother. That part could have been elaborated a little bit more, and also him and his father drifting apart. I don't really get that they just drifted off and that's it, or that he lived with the grandmother. And also, I felt like they cut out the grandmother a little bit more from this story. I felt like she could have had a bigger role in this movie. Where was she when Tim grown up? Was Tim still living with her, or did she pass away as well? Harry too, I felt like we barely got to know Harry. We only knew of Harry from other characters saying that, oh, he was a good detective, or he was this type of guy. And there wasn't really room for interpretation, which of course, this could play into the fact that Harry was the Pikachu, and then come to find out it was Ryan Reynolds at the end. I felt like there was a lot of elements missing from this particular story. Tim and Harry, there was more to their past of what they led on. It felt like an afterthought compared to the rest of the movie, which, again, I love the movie, but I felt like they could have touched on a lot of those topics. Another thing that I felt off to me was Yoshida. He could have been the villain of the movie, or at least play like a sub-villain, that he was in on it as well. It just because it felt like with one particular scene where Tim and Pikachu were arrested, and then they went into Yoshida's office and they were trying to tell him that, hey, we found Pikachu, and he didn't even react. Like, oh yeah, I'm not following. In your report you just said that Pikachu died. Harry's body is missing, and then his Pikachu is right here that supposedly you're good friends with. What I'm getting is that at that scene where he didn't even listen to Tim, it felt like he was in on it as well, that he didn't accept his father's death. It just bugged me the wrong way, especially towards the end where you just see him one last time where he gets attacked by a Snubbull and then he gets separated, and then that's it. It's like as if they cut out a good bit of story as well. I think that he could have been the villain, or at least in the Clifford family's pockets at least. And then getting to the main part of what I had a problem with the movie was the villain. This movie is really good, and it's actually, in my opinion, it's the best video game movie told. Having said that, the villain is very lacking. To me, he wasn't a good villain. I could understand putting his mind conscience into Mewtwo because his body was deteriorating already because of his terminal illness. That way he can live forever, or at least live longer than what he's supposed to, especially in a powerful Pokemon like Mewtwo. That part I get. To make everybody else Pokemon, that just seems kind of whack. Like, it doesn't seem like a very good plan. Well, at least he's not wanting to kill all the Pokemon by stating that, oh, I love Pokemon so much, I want to kill them all. I never get that villain from X and Y. I digress. But going back to Howard Clifford, I felt like his story was tampered with as well, along with the son too, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. It goes back to the chemical R, where they were testing it. They can switch humans into Pokemon's body, and that's only if the Pokemon were in a crazed state. That part doesn't make sense to me. My theory is that the story, what if Howard Clifford was supposed to hate Pokemon in actuality, or really his son hates Pokemon as well, or they're both in on it, where they resent Pokemon secretly. Because one, what if a Pokemon caused his illness to stay in a chair like that, and he resents Pokemon because of that incident? Or his son resents the Pokemon because they took away his father from all of the attention he gets. One thing that I wanted to add on to the experimenting of the chemical R was they're enhancing the power of Greninja, like making them more aggressive, and then they're enhancing the growth or the evolution of certain Pokemon like Torterra. You get this scene where you see Torterra's gigantic, like kaiju size, and you're thinking, where is this gonna go? Like, you see a Torterra the size Godzilla. It's never brought up again for the rest of the movie, and then those poor Torterras, they stay like that for the rest of their lives, and you're thinking, what is the outcome? What is the result? And there's none. And I think that's something that was either cut out or that it wasn't thought upon. Because why experiment on growing Pokemon unless a slide way of like promoting like Dynamaxing or Gigantamaxing? Unless that was a thing, that was their goal, or they're hinting at about legendary Pokemon being that big and they just want to see how people will react to it in a future movie. I felt like they cut out a story element dealing with those experiments. And that was another thing too, that I felt like they cut out a lot of experimental parts of the movie to the story because I guess they didn't want to get any backlash. This is not the first time Pokemon were experimented on, especially in the original game where you found out that they were using DNA from Mew to make Mewtwo. Not to mention they experimented on Pokemon as well to make them stronger, to make them more aggressive. Especially in Sun and Moon, where the villain of that game, she froze Pokemon and experimenting on them, and that's pretty messed up. Because Pokemon, I know on the outside it looks like it's a fun family game, but it really had a lot of dark elements, and this movie had a lot of dark elements too, and I'll get to that later on in my positive section. But I felt like a lot of these experiments were cut out for the sake of just time restraints, or it didn't fit the narrative of the story that they wanted to tell from like maybe after a test audience or something along those lines. With story elements like that, I felt like they cut out a good bit, especially with the chemical R. In the first half of the movie, it felt like R played a good part of the story, but when they got to the laboratory, that's where R just kind of disappeared from the rest of the movie. I think the original plan of it was they were using this drug to make Pokemon go crazy and attack people so they can create a bad image for Pokemon. To me, that's what the story seemed like. That Howard Clifford, his son, or even both of them, they were using this drug to give Pokemon a bad reputation so people can put them back in Pokeballs or not use them at all, to be afraid of Pokemon, to resent the Pokemon, just like how Howard Clifford would resent Pokemon for his condition. But they didn't go that route. And it just seems very tampered with. Something else that they could have added, or a brand new element they could have done, was what if Mewtwo was the villain the entire time, framing Howard Clifford and his son resenting Pokemon, and really it was Mewtwo. He was creating the chemical R to make Pokemon more aggressive, to see his line of thinking to attack humans, because he feels like Pokemon are superior to humans, even though he was created by them. He resents them because of that. Like, it's set in a different universe compared to the main series games and in the anime, where he doesn't quite figure out that humans are not all bad. Or he figures this way out, but it's not that many, it's not enough to convince him otherwise to carry out his plan. And that would have created an interesting dynamic where Mewtwo was still bad at heart. You kind of see his way of thinking, but he was still going about it the wrong way. I can't tell if Mewtwo was added very late or Mewtwo was the plan the entire time, but that's just how I look at it from my observation of it. And then come to find out, this is a Warner Brothers movie. And we all know that Warner Brothers have a reputation of ruining a movie. They tampered with BVS, or Batman vs. Superman. They tampered with Suicide Squad. They tampered with a couple of Harry Potter movies. And then the infamous Justice League movie. It's no secret that Warner Brothers mess with movies, and it's very apparent in this movie from my understanding, and if I'm wrong, that's okay. Based on my observation, there was a lot of things tampered with. It felt like a Tim and Harry Goodman story about their past was tampered with, like they took out a good bit of that. They took out Howard Clifford, about maybe he hates Pokemon, and they just took that out for some weird body swap story. And then the chemical R, about its impact with the Pokemon, and also Yoshida. It just felt like a lot of things were missing with that, and to me that's not very effective. But no matter how bad these elements are and how certain things are missing, that doesn't change the fact that this movie was actually really good. Now, with all the negativity out of the way, I want to get into the positive of Detective Pikachu. There's so much to talk about. I've broken down into multiple segments. This one, I want to talk about the overall main thing about the movie, the Pokemon. All of their designs are flawless. That was one thing I was afraid of when I heard that they announced they were making a Pokemon live action movie. One was, are they gonna make them ultra realistic where it don't even look like the Pokemon? Because I've seen drawings of that, and that's not really my personal taste, but also I don't think they're not supposed to look like that. Found a way to make them look like their video game and anime counterparts, and even better. What gets me is that some people actually thought that they were supposed to be smooth. I mean, I always thought Pikachu had fur. Because you have to look at it from an animator's point of view, or at least video game, is that it's easier to make them non-texture because you can just whip them out like that. It does take time to add some textures.
Pokemon is trying to slowly convince us Pikachu was always fluffy, and I for one accept this future. Did you think the mouse was just smooth and had yellow skin like a little Simpsons demon?
And then when the movie finally came out, I loved every single Pokemon. I loved all of their textures. Even ones that I didn't think about. Snorlax, I never thought about Snorlax having fur. I always thought Snorlax was maybe a bit, I wouldn't say like human skin, but like a bit rough, kind of like a Machamp, which I was blown away about Machamp's design too, where his skin was a bit darker than what he usually is in the anime or in the video game counterpart that is a light blue. I like how they add a bit dark blue to his skin. And then you can see the textures of Greninja's tongue, and even Lickitung. I was blown away about how Lickitung's tongue, it looked very creepy, but at the same time very realistic about what a tongue's supposed to look like. And then Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle, they're all scaly, or at least they have textures to them. And that's what I wanted in the Pokemon. I didn't want them to be ultra realistic where I couldn't tell them apart, but I wanted them to be believable, and they felt very believable. I fell in love with every single design, And I can't wait to see more Pokemon. Like, I hope that we see more live action Pokemon movies from here on out, and we'll see new Pokemon and then their designs. But moving on, another thing that I loved about Detective Pikachu was that they showed Pokemon, not only were they adorable, they were dangerous, that they could kill you. The scene where Tim and his friend were looking for a Pokemon for him and they stumble upon a Cubone, which it was very adorable. He was crying and it was sad. He looked very cute. But then when Tim insulted him, he got very aggressive, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, that was a good change of pace, because like, if you saw this in anime form, you thought it would still be cute. But I actually felt like, oh, okay, I better walk the other way because it's like growling at me. It felt like a threat. And then when he was chasing him, bear in mind, it was still very cute when the Cubone was chasing him. And I had to fight every fiber of my being to not like react like, oh, it's so cute. It still was very frightening that this thing that could kill you, it could launch a bone at you and probably slip you into a coma if it hit the right spot. That just blew my mind that they brought Pokemon to life. That if you play the main series games, you know that Pokemon are not something to trifle with. I mean, legendaries aside, any Pokemon can be dangerous, and that's what I like about it, that they're forces of nature, and they brought that into the big screen. And there's multiple examples of this. Apom. Apom is the cutest Pokemon, and then they found a way to make me scared of them. That part where they were chasing Tim and then they all turned around and looked right at him, I was like, nope, I'm out, I'm going the other way. There's Pokemon that you're supposed to be afraid of, like Charizard. The Charizard was afraid of Gyarados, and then I was like, oh, I feel so bad for it. And then there's Mr. Mime. Mr. Mime, who I feel like stole the show of the movie, stole Pikachu's thunder, so to speak. Because everyone was afraid of this thing, and then also Mr. Mime prior to this movie, not that many people talked about. But now everyone's talking about Mr. Mime, because it was very hilarious. I think he just wanted someone to play with, because honestly, I think he was just a Pokemon that just stumbled upon what happened, and he just told Harry what happened. They got his textures right, and then just him not saying a word. I'm glad he didn't have any sound to him, that he was just, well, a mime. I can't gush over Bulbasaur too. Bulbasaur's look and his design are good. It's his sound is what got me. The way is not like, you know, like traditional anime form. It was like actual animal sounds. And that's with a lot of the Pokemon, that they did say their names, but they actually felt like an animal. Like with Trico, it didn't go like it was like a screech. Okay. Thing like that. Another thing that blew me away was Loudron being used as a speaker. Now granted, I probably should have saw this coming in the games where, oh, Loudron were being used as speakers because they were always paired with guitar Pokemon trainers. But it never dawned on me that Loudron could be used as a speaker the way they did in the movie. I was like, wow, that actually makes me appreciate Loudron even more. The next thing that blew me away was Eevee's evolution, and I'm glad they chose Flareon. Within the community, not that many people like Flareon, but I'm glad they chose Flareon because I love Flareon very much. They showed an actual evolution happening in the movie. That and, of course, the Gyarados scene as well. Another thing I'm appreciative about this movie is the mix of generation. I am so glad they did not go full Gen 1 with this. If they would have went full Gen 1, I would have been mad. Because Pokemon, it's all the generations, not just that one that everyone grew up with just for that when they were 10 years old and then they grow up and they think that that's the best generation. No, all Pokemon are great. I'm glad that they're very representative of each generation. Even if it was a few from each one, that's fine. At least that shows that you showed the mix of it. And also all the Pokemon fit well to the setting that they were in. We can be here for hours talking about the Pokemon in general because that's really what the show is about this movie. is showcasing the Pokemon, showcasing that it can be done in live action. I was so afraid that it wasn't going to be like the game or the show, and actually showed me that it's better than the game and anime. And I would like to see them implement this to the future. Not only just in live action movies, but the games in general actually add textures to the Pokemon. That could help a lot of Pokemon's design. Like Electabuzz. Take Electabuzz for example. Like a lot of people probably think that he's smooth, but imagine him with actual fur, and then especially evolving into an Electivire. And I think that would help a lot of designs with them, because I will say this, some of the designs from the first generation, they're not as good as some of the designs now. Like now they're a bit more intricate, and you do need to change them up. I think that's why they do the regional variants, is to update them. That's something Detective Pikachu has shown me when it comes to the Pokemon, is that there's always room for improvement and to showcase these Pokemon in a better light. And I like to see this implemented in future installments, whether it's live action movies or the game itself or even in the anime. Getting into the next segment, the world of Pokemon, or at least in the world of the live action version. This feels very different from the anime. It felt more closer to the video games, and that's a good thing because I actually like it better. It has no ties to the anime, maybe a little to the game. Glad it stuck to its own thing. It made something maybe not original, but something that it felt its own identity. The world in itself, I love the setting, right at home. I love the noir feel to it, all the bricks, all the metalwork to it. I want to comment on was there's no battling. Granted, we had one scene that had a battle scene, and I'm glad that they didn't emphasize on battles. I think for two reasons. One, I think they wanted to avoid something from PETA, which I don't know if they ever said anything about this movie or not. And two, it kind of puts a spotlight to more of the Pokemon in their personalities and what they can do outside of battling. Because when Pokemon first came out, let's be honest, and this is coming from a fan who has been there since day one of Pokemon, it was pretty much a glorified dogfight. And I hate to say it, yeah, it was. And then there is still battling nowadays, but now they're mixing other aspects of Pokemon that I can get behind. And I think they should implement this in future games, and they have been doing it. Well, Pokemon Snap is another take on it, where you can take pictures of Pokemon. That's another good way. Baking with Pokemon, solving detective work from Pokemon, obviously Detective Pikachu the video game, and then the mystery dungeon games. There's other aspects of Pokemon that people can get behind if you're not into the whole battling thing. I like battling, but now I'm I wouldn't say I followed out of it, but I do want more Pokemon, and they're kind of working on that. And that's what I see from this movie, is that they're trying to show Pokemon from a different light, not just to show that they're here to help us win battles. We're here to live among them, and that's what I loved about the concept of Rhyme City, was that all of them lived in harmony, and that's what I envision with the Pokemon living with humans, is that they're putting out fires with us, they're cooking stuff with us, they're filming movies with us, they're just out on the run with us, taking a walk, making coffee with us. Literally anything a human can do, a Pokemon can do as well. That's what really blew me away in the overview scene when Tim shows up to Rhyme City. I love that part. That is one of my favorite scenes of the movie, is you're appreciating that this world that you thought would never come to life, and they done it right. I don't know how much I can clamor on that. They got it right. And at the same time, I am grateful they showed the battle scene too, because having seen that, I wanted to see that a bit more, maybe not too much of it to emphasize on, but 2 or 3 more battles wouldn't have hurt as well. Like, I was wanting more of the Gengar versus Blastoise battle. And also another thing, you saw Pokeballs like a few times, but you didn't see Pokemon in Pokeballs, and I think that was another thing they were trying to avoid, was like, oh, they have to live in their Pokeballs. It's kind of like a cage or something along those lines. And I could understand them wanting to change that up a bit, and it felt like a good change of pace, because I could actually imagine a Pokemon being outside of its Pokeball rather than staying in its Pokeball. Because it wants to travel with its trainer. It wants to like be out in the world. It doesn't want to be stuck in a container, which we don't know what the container looks like because Pokemon are stored in it, but we don't know how, and we don't know if it's a home, like an actual home, or it's just
a solid steel cage.
And then moving on to the music of Detective Pikachu, it was very memorable to me. The only other soundtrack I can think of on top of my head right now where I love the soundtrack along with the movie would be the Transformer movie from the 80s, the 1986 Transformer cartoon movie. But the music stayed in my head, especially Rhyme City Roundhouse, the first 18 seconds of Game On. But with Rhyme City, it felt right at home. That's where I guess you could say my nostalgia kicked in, because the music going with the overview of the city, it was like, wow, this came to life. Like the music really amplified your viewing of the city of like what to expect. And then especially that 8-bit part in Rhyme City, like it just took me back to the game, like back into those red and blue days. And then Roundhouse was the complete opposite, where it didn't have anything to do with nostalgia, but the simps with it, it went along with it. And I hope they keep on that tradition with future installments of Pokemon, even with the anime was introduced kind of like simps or like dark synthetics or something like that. And then you get to Game On, which I love the first 18 seconds because when you listen to it very carefully, it's very reminiscent of Battle Trainer in the Red and Blue games. But that was the thing about the music, it felt very memorable to me, and with Detective Pikachu, the music amplified the movie. Into the next segment, I wanted to talk about the references in Detective Pikachu, and there is galore of references in this movie, if you have an eagle-eyed view of it. I've only chosen a handful of ones because we can talk for hours about the countless references. One reference that I like to mention was Miss Norman, who happened to be the ditto of Howard Clifford. Notice the name Miss Norman, when you look at it, put an L at the end. You could easily say that it can be normal, and then ditto is a normal type. So I thought that was a nice touch to it, that her name was Miss Norman as a kind of code for ditto, because ditto is a normal type. Another reference with the Swirtle Squad, if you saw in the Rhyme City overview that they were on the news and they were putting out a fire, it was kind of like a nice nod to the Swirtle Squad from the anime way back in the day. Another thing was they used the Pokemon theme from the anime C&M News, but they didn't outright use the lyric, which I'm glad, and the only time you heard of it when Pikachu was singing it at the very close to the end of the movie. Another reference that was so cool to see was Howard Clifford's office. When you look at the whole office, you see evolution stones laid out because it's his obsession of evolving into a better version of yourself. He's been obsessed with that. So obviously, he would have a bunch of collection stones because he's studying evolution. Another nod was Dialga, Palkia, and Arceus in his office, like right behind him. I don't know if that's something that they're hinting at, like maybe we'll see those particular set of Pokemon next in the next movie, because that would make a good storyline where it deals with time, space, and then creation. Oh, and a little bit that no one really paid attention to that I kind of wanted to bring up was the letter that Harry was going to send Tim for his 21st birthday. Notice the address, which I'll have it pulled up. It was 151 Staymore Street or Road, I'll have the picture up, and then it was saying Leavington Town, and like Staymore, which of course that's a play on to him staying in the town that he resigning in, and then leaving town is kind of like a play on that you need to leave town. And then of course 151 is a nod to the original 151 Pokemon. Adding to the references, when Pikachu kicked Magikarp and then it evolve into a Gyarados, that was a clear nod in the anime where James kicked his Magikarp into the ocean and then evolved into a Gyarados and then summoned a bunch of other Gyarados too. Moral of the story, never kick a Magikarp unless you're very desperate. Well, you shouldn't kick a Magikarp at all. Who's going to kick a Magikarp? Last part of the references I wanted to mention, because it adds a bit more lore to the world of Pokemon, and this particular one is the battle posters, because you saw multiple ones and it looked like it was individual Pokemon fighting each other rather than a full 6-on-6 or 3-on-3 battle that we're accustomed to in the game and in the anime. So it kind of makes it feel like more of like a wrestling match, or I wouldn't say a boxing match, I would say like more of a wrestling match, where it's these two individual. Outcome of the battle determines from these two Pokemon from each trainer. In one of the battle posters, it had Steelix versus Articuno, which also means that regular people could own a legendary Pokemon, which is a nice nod to the anime, where there's been a couple of times where an ordinary person, not like a special person or whatever, just a regular person or a gym leader, they would own a legendary Pokemon. Like Brandon, he would have 3 Reggie Pokemon, I remember him. And then you had Tobias, the infamous trainer who had a Darkrai, which to this day we want to know, how did he get a Darkrai? And then I forgot his name, but there was a Frontier Brain from Battle Frontier. He had an Articuno, which is a nice nod to him. And it just brings the lore to this live action Pokemon world that regular people can capture a legendary Pokemon, at least as high as a Articuno, maybe even to a Darkrai. And that was just very nice. And then it just had all the posters in general that showing that Reshiram and Zekrom, they do exist and people know of their existence. And same thing with Rayquaza. That it was just very nice to see all these Pokemon, that it wasn't just merchandise thrown out to you just to show more Pokemon. It's to show that these Pokemon exist. Maybe you get glimpses of them, kind of like in a Bigfoot type of way, where you see them but you don't really believe that they exist, and then you have artwork of them. So it was a very nice touch to bring myth into reality. Summing up for our last segment is the story of Detective Pikachu. Now, I said it at the very beginning of this, is that I do have my grievances with the story, that it felt like a lot of it was cut up, that they took out a good bit, and I don't know if that's true or not. That's based on my observation. But what I do know is Detective Pikachu is still good on its own, it just has the potential of it. I do love the story with Tim and Harry, where Tim resented his father, and he found out that his father really did care about him this entire time, and he wished he would have given him a chance. And I actually would have seen, like, nothing against the character Lucy, but I think they could have cut her out or maybe moved her to another role, and Tim becomes a detective. Like, he actually finds all this out on his own, and it shows that he really is his father's son, that he's cut up for this detective work. So you could say like maybe that was tampered with, but I would have loved to seen more of that brought into it. And it was a good story overall. With the movie in general, it didn't feel like it was an afterthought, because like the main selling point was the Pokemon. Yes, like the Pokemon were everywhere and it was very nice to see them, but it wasn't so much as a selling point that the movie was bad or it was forgettable. Because prior to this recording, I have seen it like at least a dozen times by now, because it's a really good movie. At least for me it is. What it brings up to this final segment is the potential of it. Does it have a lot of potential? Yes, it certainly does. It has so much potential that you can make it, and I know a lot of people are probably tired of cinematic universes. When it comes to Pokemon, you can go wherever you want with it. And you don't have to necessarily make it based off the game or anime. You could actually make it its own thing. You can make multiple Detective Pikachu stories where they're solving a mystery of maybe a legendary Pokemon or a coup that's happening within a city. You can mix it up. You can make a Pokemon movie about beauty contests, about showing Pokemon being used in a contest, and then you can implement it in a way like maybe you can make it a little bit more mature. Same thing with the battling too. Maybe don't make it really aggressive, but you can make a movie about battling or collecting gym battles if you want. You just have so many opportunities with just Pokemon in general. You can go anywhere with it. And that's what I love about Detective Pikachu. It's like open the Pandora's box. Is that now it's out there. The idea of Pokemon is out there. And you can do with it whatever you want. And it will make money. If I'm throwing a little fan cast here, I would, if they want to continue the whole talking Pokemon concept, bring in Nathan Lane, get him to play Meowth, like a sly talking Meowth, and then we have a movie. I can only see Nathan Lane playing as Meowth. With the world of Pokemon, it's not going to go anywhere, because obviously it's here from the game, anime, cards, you name it. So now you can add movies to it, not just animated movies, live action movies to his resume. Pokemon is not going away, so we might as well live in the world of Pokemon. And that's it. We're done talking about Detective Pikachu. Again, it's one of my personal favorite movies of all time, and I had a lot of fun doing this video. It comes full circle that this is what I wanted to do with my videos, or at least when it comes to Pokemon, I really want to talk about the Pokemon in general. So do expect more Pokemon videos in the future. So let's start wrapping this up. Hit the notification bell to let you know when some more videos would come out. Also like, subscribe, share, and also there will be a handle in my description for my Twitter, Instagram, and Vero. Until next time, thank you for talking with me.